So Hare Krishna. We'll start our session today by paying our obeisances to His Divine Grace, His Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya for ISKCON. So we are in our journey for chapter 11. The title of chapter 11 is the Universal Form. Yeah? And this falls within, like since 7th chapter, we are in the middle sixth screen of the Bhagavad Gita. And this section is part 2, which is Bhakti Yoga, right? So 11th chapter titles as the Universal Form, and this has 55 shlokas in it. And this is where, I think this is one of the famous things which most of us know, watching, Mahabharata and all, right? That Krishna shows his, Virat Roop. That's what we call it as, it in general. So this is the chapter where he shows, right, his universal form. And in this chapter, from shloka, first to fourth, yeah. So it is basically divided into different sections, just to give an overview. That in here, we will see that from initially, Arjuna actually requests Krishna to show his universal form. And of course, we'll see why he asks, yeah, as well, and later in the chapter. And then followed by Arjuna's request, Krishna is Bhakt Vatsalu, right? He describes his universal form, right? He does that, right? He shows his universal form. And in parallel, we'll see that, Sanjaya describes, like we know that Sanjaya was with Dhritarashtra, he was, he had the power given by Vyasdev, right? So he was, in parallel, describing Arjuna's vision of that universal form to Dhritarashtra. And then the flow of the chapter goes that Arjuna, experiences the universal form, what he feels, and we'll see that. And then Krishna, and Krishna asks, after he sees the huge universal form, that, who are you? And Krishna replies that I am time, time I am, and you become my instrument, to execute, right? So we'll see how we are nothing but nimitta matra. That's what we say. We are just an instrument, in Krishna's hand. And then, once the universal form is shown, we see how Arjuna prays, he gives some prayers, and then, we'll see how, as a pure devotee, Arjuna would like, he sees the universal form, then he sees the four-handed form, and then he sees, he requests for two-handed form, right? So why is universal form discussed in the section of Bhakti Yoga, right? See, universal form is that Vishwarupena, right? Which we learned in 9th chapter, if you remember. We have learned Ekatvena, Pratatvena, and Vishwarupa, right? So Ekatvena, who worship Krishna in oneness, right? And then Pratatvena, who worship Krishna, who worship, various lives like demigods, right? And then Vishwarupa was the other one, that is the universal form of Krishna. Now, when we are talking about universal form, right, why are we talking in Bhakti Yoga, right? Bhakti Yoga is the personal form, right? Like we discussed that knowing Krishna's opulences, last chapter, 10th chapter, dealt completely with opulence of the Absolute. I'm sorry for the title mistake here. I'll correct that and upload in the slide. So 10th chapter's title was the opulence of the Absolute, right? So we discussed and we knew how Krishna's opulences are. Krishna shows his greatness as well as we learned the sweetness. Right? Now people will get attracted, right? Once they know a person's greatness and in detail. We also saw how people gradually develop that respect, and that respect eventually grows into love. Right? So universal form also shows his greatness, right? As only Krishna can show a universal form. Have we ever heard of anybody else showing the universal form? No, right? It's only Krishna who can show this universal. And that shows him again his opulence, his greatness, right? So overall, any form of Krishna we would like to see, maybe two-handed form, four-handed form, which is the Narayana form, or the universal. You know, the component of bhakti is the most important piece. You know, no matter what form it is of Krishna, that component of love, right? We learned that component is the most essential. That's why Arjuna could see, you know, as he was a pure devotee. This this chapter also ends, you know, the last section, which covers from shloka 47 to 55. It ends that pure bhakti is the prerequisite for knowing Krishna and to also be eligible to see any form of Krishna, maybe a universal form, four-handed or two-handed, be it any form. You know, the most essential piece for us, you know, to see any form of Krishna is that pure bhakti. And Arjuna is asking Krishna to show his universal form, not for himself, for us, for others. And we'll see that later in the chapter. Okay, so this is the flow where Arjuna requests, Krishna shows the form, and in parallel, Sanjay also describes the form, you know, which Arjuna sees, and you know, Arjuna expressing, you know, how he felt after seeing the universal form, and you know, then in the end, understanding that pure bhakti is the most important. This is the flow of the chapter. Okay, now, yeah, we'll start with the first section where Arjuna requests Krishna to show his universal form. Right? Now, before we get in there, yeah, let's quickly go back to the last verse of 10th chapter. So last verse of 10th chapter, see in 10th chapter, we saw that Krishna from shloka 19, right, to 39, he explains how we can experience him, how we can see him with everything around, right? We saw so many examples there, right, of the luminaries and sun, right? So such examples we saw so many. Right? He gave 82 examples. Krishna gave 82 examples in 10th chapter, which we covered last time. You know, that, you know, he is for us to start seeing Krishna, how to see Krishna around us. Right? Now, after he says all the opulence, remember before he said he was about to start his opulence, he said that, you know, I'll just give you a glimpse of, you know, I cannot tell you the whole thing because it is inconceivable. You know, it's like uncountable, Krishna's opulence. So Krishna just gave a glimpse of it. And then in the end of 10th chapter, Krishna concludes to Arjuna that what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? You know, again he shows his opulence. He ends the shloka again with opulence, right? Where Krishna says, with just a single fragment of myself, I can pervade and support the whole universe. Just with a single spark of this. He's not burdened, right? We learned in 9th chapter. Krishna is not burdened with all, energies, different energies, you know, with this material world maintenance, creation, destruction. He's not burdened, you know. At the same time, he is in everything. He's aloof, right? We learned that concept. He's aloof. He's independent, right? So, because it's his different, aspects, right? Where his energy is spread throughout. Yeah, it's like delegated, at the same time he is responsible, right? So when Arjuna hears this statement that with just a spark of Krishna creates all these universes, what comes in Arjuna's mind, right? I mean, for us, right? That Arjuna, after hearing this, of course he would like to see how does Krishna, what is that form of Krishna which pervades him? Yes. You know, because in front of him is a two-handed form Krishna, right? But Arjuna, after hearing this, of course he wants to see such a form, right? as a pure devotee. It's like I said, it is not for Arjuna, because remember, Arjuna already accepted, in 10th chapter, after Krishna said the Chaturshloki Bhagavata, also we see that how Krishna, how Arjuna accepted that Krishna, you are Parabrahma, Parabdhama, right? You are the supreme. Your abode is the supreme, right? We saw that before also, right? So Arjuna is asking this. We have to be very clear, and we'll see this further, right? As why. Now, from the last verse of 10th chapter, Arjuna wishes to see that all pervasive form, which Krishna has described in the last verse of last chapter, which was 10.42. And in response to Arjuna's request, Krishna shows his Vishwarupa, which is the universe. Yeah. See, it's not the first time Krishna is saying he pervades everywhere, right? He has said this so many times. In 10th chapter, he has said, right? We also saw in 7th chapter, right? From verse 8 to 11, he also explained, right? I'm the taste of water, I'm the smell of earth, he's all pervasive. And again, we saw in 9th chapter, from 17th verse to 19th verse, that he says that I am, I'm the grandfather, I'm the, ultimate father, right? And then he says, so even from in those verses 17 to 19, we see how Krishna is in everything. And then 10th chapter, Krishna again says, it's just not this. I'm the origin of all the qualities, right? All the qualities, intelligence, anything you say, fear, fearlessness. We learned all those qualities as well, right? So everything is also coming from him. Then after he said, I'm the origin of qualities, what did he say in 10th chapter? I'm the origin of all the great personalities, as like the great sages, Manu, everybody, right? So he is the origin of great personalities as well. And then he said that Aham Sarvasya Prabhave, right? 10.8, the Chaturshloki Bhagavatam. He gave those 4 verses, right? And 10.8 verse was Aham Sarvasya Prabhave, right? So I am, everything is emanating from me. Mataha Sarvam Pravartati, right? So many times, Krishna has said that he pervades everything, right? And now, after hearing in Bhakti Yoga section from Krishna, Arjuna wants to know how will Krishna look in that majestic form, right? Where he pervades the entire universe, not only one universe, but universes, right? And hence Krishna is showing him this form. Okay, so maybe we can, Hari Krishna Prabhuji, will you be able to read this?
Yeah, yes, Mataji. Devotee is not concerned with seeing the Vishwarupa, the universal form, but Arjuna wanted to see it to substantiate Krishna's statement so that in the future people could understand that Krishna not only theoretically or philosophically presented himself as the supreme, but actually practically present himself as such to Arjuna. Arjuna must confirm this because Arjuna is the beginning of parampara system. Those who are actually interested in understanding the supreme personality of Godhead, Krishna, and who follow in the footsteps of Arjuna should understand that Krishna not only theoretically presented himself as the supreme, but actually revealed himself as the supreme. Bhagavad Gita 11.8. Purport.
So see, this is the intelligence level we have in Kali Yuga, right? There are so many people who says who question the existence of God, right? Now, Prabhupada is saying in the purport that Krishna explained all this, his appearance, that I'm here, right? I'm in everything. Everything originates from me. Well, in the with the intelligence in this yuga, there will be class of people who question, okay, philosophically I understand, but what is the proof? it's very natural nowadays what we see this tendency, right? What is the proof, right? And that's what Krishna is doing here, and that's why Arjuna is asking us. This is Arjuna is asking this for that lower intelligence, Rasakti, right? That Krishna not only said, but he also showed his universal form. And we'll see in 11th chapter further how everything is described, what could Arjuna see? It is like, we watch, when we go to a movie theater, we watch the screen, there are different screen sizes. For Arjuna, just imagine the whole sky was the screen. The universal form covered the whole sky. To the latest extent he could see, his vision would go. That was the screen for Arjuna. So that immensely, was the form of Krishna, universal form of Krishna. See, Prabhupada also explains in the purpose that as pure devotees, we would not like to see such a form, because devotees know Krishna's power. Devotees know Krishna's, that opulence, that and they know he's supreme. He can do anything, right? They can only, and that's why, they would actually reciprocate with the two-handed form of Krishna, rather than such a gigantic form of Krishna. So, for example, in Bhagavatam 10th canto, we have a story of gopis, right? Where after the, when during the rasa dance, right, Krishna disappears, and gopis, they are searching for Krishna. And while they're searching, Krishna turns into 400 form, Narayana form, and he appears in front of them. And gopis, because they are, pure devotees, they're attracted to the 200 form. When they saw the 400 form of, Narayana appearing, they just asked him, have you seen Krishna? Have you seen Krishna going somewhere? So they were least bothered in a way that it's, so they were so much engrossed in Krishna's 200 form. So for devotees, it's like the 200 form is where they can reciprocate, rather than such a universal form. And we'll see here also in 11th chapter how Arjuna in the end requests Krishna to come back to his 200 form, because that's the form we can reciprocate with Krishna. Okay? So it's very clear that Arjuna is definitely asking for others, not for himself. So that everybody is convinced that Krishna is supreme. It's just not theoretical, philosophical, but it's also practically Krishna displaying that, right? So, and we have kind of, after this verse also, we have put some verses from the prior chapters of Bhakti Yoga also, so that we can correlate. It will be more easier for us to follow, and kind of a good recap if we go back and we correlate that. Yeah. So this is the first verse for 11th chapter. And it goes like Arjuna uvacha mad anugrahaya karamam bhuyam adhyatma samhitam yat tvayoktam vachastena mohoyam vigato mama. So Arjuna said, by my hearing the instructions you have kindly given me about these most confidential spiritual subjects, my illusion has now been dispelled. Okay, so Arjuna in the first verse is saying his all illusion is dispelled. It's gone, vanished. Yeah, and he also highlights that Krishna is giving him the most confidential spiritual knowledge. Yeah, Bhagavad Gita is spoken to Krishna free, to Arjuna free of cost, right? And all this Krishna is doing for why? Why is he doing? This word anugrahaya means compassion. Krishna is compassionate towards Arjuna, and that's why he's saying, he's giving this most confidential knowledge, right? See, Arjuna, by this level of 11th chapter, he has gone through the parts of where he understood the yoga ladder. Krishna has explained in the yoga ladder, the part which was, and then that we have this body, not the soul. So the, confidential subject and the level has increased, right? So he also learned about the devotional service. He learned about Krishna's supremacy, everything. So by now, Krishna has explained all these factors. So Arjuna is very clear about position of Krishna. There should be no doubt that Arjuna had a doubt. So he asked, right? Arjuna by now is very clear of the position of Krishna. And like we said, he has already accepted that before also. Yeah. Now, and that's why, it shows that he's asking Krishna to show supreme form, not for himself. So there should be no speculation. And he's all convinced, right? So Arjuna is basically doing preaching, right? We learned in 10th chapter that how the gear is shift for Arjuna. His mindset has shifted, right? He started, spreading Krishna's glories. And even now he's asking to spread Krishna's glories. So he is spreading the knowledge of Krishna. Yeah. And that is preaching. And that's what we should also learn from Arjuna. You are convinced, you have to preach. You have to spread the knowledge of Krishna across. Okay? So, and these were some of the, see, when Arjuna in this verse is saying that by hearing the instructions, what instructions are we talking? He's talking all the ones which Krishna mentioned before in the Bhakti Yoga section, completely. So in 7th chapter, Krishna mentioned this verse, right? Mataha parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya. So where Krishna says that there is no truth superior to me, and everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. Okay, these are some cream important shlokas in the Bhakti Yoga section. And, it would be really nice if you try to, if you recite it every day once, you will get it. And we can, practice, I think, and these are beautiful verses, nectarian verses, right? So this is what Krishna said in 7.7, right? And then Krishna also mentioned in 10.8, aham sarvasya prabhavo, atah sarvam pravartate. So he is the source of all material and spiritual. Everything emanates from him, And then he also mentioned in 8th chapter, which was attaining the supreme, the title, right? Where we learned about whatever one remembers at the time point of death, right? He gets that. Now, and there also, Krishna mentioned that who is greater than all is attainable by, how is Krishna attainable? Only by unalloyed devotion, that love. Yeah? Although he is present in his abode, he is all pervading and everything is situated with, right? So although he is everywhere through his energy, but he himself is, situated in his abode, doing his pastimes with his associates, right? And then we also learned in 7th chapter, this is what I was saying, the opulences, taste of water, light of sun and moon, syllable om, So we learned all the opulences of Krishna from 7.8 to 11, And then we, in 9th chapter, from 17 to 19th verse, he also mentioned, like I said, he's the father of the whole universe, mother, the grandsire, that is the grandfather, and then, how he's the creator, annihilator, and the maintainer, all of the accolades, right? So now, as far as Arjuna is concerned, he says that his illusion is over in the first verse itself, in 11th chapter. This means that Arjuna no longer thinks of Krishna as a mere human being, right? As a friend of his, but as the source of everything. So it's no more the discussion which was happening when Bhagavad Gita started, was between two friends, right? But then when Arjuna surrenders to Krishna in 2nd chapter, right? Then Krishna takes the position of spiritual master, right? So Arjuna is very enlightened and is glad that he has such a great friend as Krishna. But now he is thinking that although he may accept Krishna as the source of everything, others may not. So, in order to establish Krishna's divinity for all, he is requesting Krishna in this chapter to show his universal power. Okay. So now we move to the second verse, that Krishna is the creator and destroyer. So, Jyoti Mataji, will you be able to read it?
Yes, Mataji, Hare Krishna. O lotus-eyed one, I have heard from you in detail about the appearance and disappearance of every living entity and have realized your inexhaustible glories. Bhagavad Gita 11.2.
Thank you. See, we have highlighted the word lotus-eyed one, right? Now, Arjuna is, he is calling Krishna, the word in Sanskrit is Kamala Patraksha, right? Kamala Patraksha means lotus-eyed ones. That shows his intimate relationship with Krishna, right? Arjuna is in ecstasy. So he's calling Krishna out of love, right? And immediately in the next verses, you'll see Arjuna again, starts calling Krishna with his keeping his opulence, his greatness in mind. He calls him different names. But here it's with love. Other way to describe Krishna is showing, like in the further verses, you'll see. One way is to describe Krishna with love, like the lotus-eyed one. And the other way to describe Krishna, which you'll see later, is like you are Purushottama, right? You are the supreme person. Purusha Uttama, so supreme person. He was like Janardhana, right? Now, some verses where we see, we also saw Krishna's inexhaustible glories. When we talk about Krishna's inexhaustible glories in this verse in 11.2, we also saw in several verses before, right? Again, in 7th chapter, Krishna mentioned that he's the source of both the natures, material and spiritual. And everything here is a combination of both, So, and then he mentioned also that, giving an example, that just as sunshine is spread all over the universe, the energy of the Lord is spread all over the creation. And everything is resting in that energy. Okay. And then Krishna also mentioned that though everything is situated in Krishna, they are not situated in him. He's completely aloof and independent of everything. And we discussed this shloka very much in detail because it is confusing, right? When we saw these verses in 7 chapters, the initial part, when you go back to back, it may confuse because it is contradicting maybe a bit. It may look initially contradicting with the previous verse. That at one end, Krishna is saying he's eminent, he's in everything. At the same, time, he says that he's completely aloof, because he is independent. He's Swarat. Okay. Krishna, like I said, he's never burdened, even though everything rests on him. He's never burdened. He's always relaxed and enjoyed. There was we also saw told this story before, right? That there was a German traveler who visited India and he was visiting several temples. So he visited Shiva temple, he visited, goddesses temple, and then when he came to Krishna temple, he concluded saying that he is the supreme God. And then people asked him, why do you think so? Why are you saying this? Sudden realization. And then he says, any temple I went, they had one or the other thing to take care of, like Shivji had a Trishul, right? So, and similarly, he gave examples like, others had different weapons and they were about, for their tasks they do and everything. And here I come and I see Krishna, with a murli in his hand. And he's just enjoying. That's how God should be, right? He is always relaxed. He's enjoying. And then, that is the sign of a God, supreme God. So that's how he, that story was. So similarly, Krishna is never burdened, right? He's enjoying in his own way, right? With that, with his inexhaustible glories part, we now come to 11.3 verse. And Kavya Mataji, will you be able to read it?
Yes, Mataji. Arjuna's desire to see universal from evam itad yathatha tvam atmanam parameshwarah drastum ichhami te rupam Aishwaram Purushottama. O greatest of all personalities, O supreme form, though I see you here before me in your actual position as you have described yourself, I wish to see how you have entered into this cosmic manifestation. I want to see that form of yours. Bhagavad Gita 11.3. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So Arjuna is, like we learned, he doesn't have any doubt of Krishna's supremacy, but see, he's asking Krishna to show his universal form. We can say for 4 reasons. First is to help people understand Krishna's glories. In this yuga, Arjuna knows the mindset of the people. They don't believe into something unless they don't see, unless they don't have a proof. Right? So he wants people to understand Krishna's glories. And second is to establish Krishna's divinity, that he's not an ordinary person. He is the supreme. Yeah. And third, to convince everybody that Krishna mentioned his glory so much in the prior chapters. So Krishna is truthful of what all he said. Right? That is one of the reasons, that to convince people that Krishna is truthful. If he has said he's the source of everything, he is. And then the last is that to really set a criteria in the mind of people of Kali Yuga, that there will be people who come up and say, I am God. They will claim, and we should understand that, if somebody is claiming to be a God, then they should be able to show such a form when they claim that they are God, right? This is for us to understand that, there are so many bogus people around, right? And we have to, they might have some siddhis, which a yogi would get, to make something fly or something. These are all different level of siddhis. But if they are God, then it should be beyond something, right? So that's why Krishna, this is a kind of standard for us, that if somebody is claiming to be God, then they should be able to show such a form, right? Now, in this verse, like you can see, Arjuna is using the word Purushottama for Krishna. So this is out of greatness, that was out of love, right? So see, like sun shines everywhere. Sun is called by different names, right? It is called as Surya, Suraj. In some part of the world, it is called as Helios, right? Soryo. So there are different names of sun. Similarly, Krishna also has different names. And just, to let you know, there are Krishna's names can be of 2 types. One is primary name and the other one is secondary name. Primary name, I'm just giving a topical view. Primary names are the ones which are the names related to spiritual world. Secondary names are something which are related to material world. Yeah, to make it easy for us to go. Now, primary name examples can be, like Gopinath, Gopal, Govinda, Keshava. And secondary names can be something like, Vidhata, Almighty. The word God itself is also secondary, and Ishwar, or Janardhana. So these are all secondary names, where it shows the opulence of Krishna in the material, right? It is related to material. And there might be some names which fall in both the categories. So just because Krishna has many, not Krishna, but just because God has many names, that does not mean that there are many gods. Just because sun has many names does not mean there are many suns, right? So we have to understand it. So Krishna does have many names, but there is just one God, which is Krishna. Okay. Now, just moving to the purport, of this. Just give me 1 second. Right. Rasat Prabhuji, will you be able to read this? Maybe.
Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
read. Uh, the Lord said that because he entered into the material universe by his personal representation, the cosmic manifestation has been made possible and is going on. Now, as far as Arjuna is concerned, he is inspired by the statement of Krishna. But in order to converse others in the future who may think that Krishna is an ordinary person, Arjuna desires to see him actually in his universal form, to see how he is acting from within the universe, although he is apart from it. Krishna also understands that Arjuna wants to see the universal form to set a creation. For in the future there would be so many impostors who would pose themselves as incarnation of God. The people therefore should be careful. One who claims to be Krishna
Right. Lost him. Thank you, Prasad Prabhuji. So I think we have when we have gone through this, right? He's asking this so that there are no questions in this Kali Yuga, people with that mentality, right? So further, the 11.4th verse, yeah. So Krishna says that, Arjuna says that, see, the way Arjuna is requesting Krishna, that if you think that I am able to behold your cosmic form, O my Lord, O Master of all mystic power, Yogeshwara, then kindly show me the unlimited universal self. So, see, this chapter shows us how a student should be, right? How nicely is Arjuna is a student and Krishna is a spiritual master, right? So how Arjuna is, putting across thing, he's putting across that if his spiritual master thinks it is, that he's able to, the student is able to hold it, then he can give, right? So, so much humility from a student, that humble, right? Humbleness, that is the main thing which a student should have as a quality, right? The word here, Yogeshwara, again, one more name of Krishna. It's very significant here because it shows that, like Arjuna is calling master of all mystic power, right? So, it's okay, Prasad Prabhuji, we got it. You're back. Thank you. So sorry, I was saying that, yeah, Krishna is the master. So what is Yogeshwara? He's the master of all mystic power, right? Because the power of Krishna is inconceivable. Inconceivable means we cannot even imagine. Our tiny brain, few grams of brain cannot conceive, cannot understand, because it's unlimited. And only Krishna can reveal himself, by his grace, by his mercy, right? Therefore, Arjuna is pleading that for that inconceivable mercy, grace of Krishna. He's pleading Krishna, right? He is not giving Krishna orders. He is not saying, even though he has such an intimate relationship with Krishna, he's not saying, I want to see it. He's not demanding. He's not asking. He's saying only if Krishna thinks that he can take it. He's asking Krishna. See, Krishna is not obliged to reveal himself to everybody. We saw, ye yathamam prapattante tam stataiva bhajami. So, as a person surrenders, Krishna, takes further. He reveals himself. So, unless one doesn't surrender to Krishna, Krishna will not reveal himself. Unless one is engaged in devotional service. Thus, it is not possible for a person who depend on the strength of material things to see Krishna. Just because you have heavy fame, high power, high money, does not mean that you will be able to see Krishna. No, that's not the qualification. To see Krishna, we need that love factor, that fully surrendered to Krishna consciousness. Okay? And see, to see Krishna from our material eyes, which we have here, is impossible. We need to be a pure devotee, right? And the most important need is Krishna's mercy. We keep doing from our end, and Krishna, Krishna's mercy is needed, for that to happen. Without his mercy, we cannot see any form of his, no matter, not about just one form, but any form, we cannot see. So we give the example of Surdas, right? He was a singer, right? A poet, and how he was blind, and he could still see Krishna, right? So we don't need this material eyes to see Krishna. So that's why, see, from this verse we learn, that's why we should always pray to Krishna and ask his mercy, saying that, please grant me what I'm asking. If you're asking something, wishing something, then we have to have the humble, mood that, please grant me if you desire Krishna. If you think it is good for me, please grant me that. That's the way we should be praying to Krishna. That's the way we will be completely dependent on Krishna. Okay, so when we ask, it's not, just give me this. It's like we say, Krishna willing, we will be able to cover so and so, right? So it's mainly, praying with the attitude that, please grant me this if you think this is good for me, and if you desire so, right? That's the humble attitude we should have. Okay, so with that, something from the purport again, that it is said that one can neither see, hear, understand, nor perceive the Supreme Lord, Krishna, by material senses. But if one is engaged in loving transcendental service to the Lord from the beginning, then one can see the Lord by revelation. Okay, so Lord reveals himself. It's Krishna's mercy, right? Krishna is not conceivable by this material sense. Okay, so we move on to the 5th verse then. Reshma Mataji, can you read this?
Sorry for interruption. As your last slide, the last line you said, I did not get that.
This slide, which is appearing?
Yeah, if one is engaged in loving transcendental service to the Lord from the beginning, then one can see the Lord by revelations. What is that?
So to establish relationship with Krishna, it's not that I have started bhakti today and tomorrow, I want him to reveal, right? So it's a gradual process. So you start, you have that devotional service, gradually it increases, from your start until you cannot expect the start to be really, to really start giving back, so when it's not from the beginning of your birth, no, that's not, but yeah, that is ideal what we say, as well. But once you start your devotion service, it gradually grows, and as you keep doing more, then Krishna starts revealing himself. That's what it means. Yeah.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare
Shri
Krishna.
Bhagavan Vacha Pashyame Partha Rupani Shatatotha Sahasrashaha Nana Vidhani Divyani Nana Varna Krutini Cha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Arjuna, O son of Pratha, see now my opulences, hundreds of thousands of varied, divine, and multicolored forms." Bhagavad Gita 11.5. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. See, Arjuna wanted to see Krishna in his universal form, you know, which is also a transcendental form. There is no doubt, you know, but it is manifested for the cosmic manifestation, right? And therefore, you know, we have to understand that universal form is, you know, the cosmic manifestation, you know, when the universe is created, right? So, and the universe, we know that it will be created and there will be an end, right? It will be destroyed, right? At the end of Brahma's life, you know, that particular universe will go back into Mahavishnu, right? So it is temporary in nature, right? And similarly, the universal form also, in that per se, it is a temporary, you know, as the material nature is manifested and non-manifested, right? Similarly, this universal form of Krishna is manifested and non-manifested. Okay, it is not eternally situated in the spiritual sky. Okay, like as far as a devotee is concerned, like I said, he's never eager to see that universal form. You know, Arjuna wanted to see this form for a different, like we saw the reason, right? So, so this ordinary form, what he's saying, Krishna is saying that you know, Arjuna, you will now see my opulence, hundreds of thousands of very divine and multicolored form, right? Universal form is not possible to be seen by our material eyes. We don't have that. We don't have the capacity to see microorganisms itself, right? COVID, were we about, you know, were we able to see it? No. So Krishna is too far for us, right? But Krishna, if Krishna gives us the power to see it, if he grants the power to see it, then we will be able to. And that's what he does. He gives Arjuna, yeah, in the next word we will see, following verses, that Arjuna will not be able to see Krishna with his material eyes. Krishna gave that Divya Chakshu to Arjuna. Okay. So until here, fourth verse, we saw how Arjuna requested humbly and Krishna said, yes, he will show it. And, you know, and now from verse 5 to 8, we will see it's like Krishna gives a trailer of a movie, you know, like a trailer of a movie is what it gives you some glimpses, you know, of the movie, you know, and that's what Krishna does from verse 5 to 8, which we are going to do now. He just gives a glimpse as what can Arjuna find in those forms before giving Arjuna Divya Chaksha. Krishna is giving him a nice trailer, right? So Krishna is giving him the glimpse of how his universal form might be. Okay, and this verse, it starts with that. So Krishna says, you know, once I give you that vision, you know, you'll be able to see in that form, you know, thousands of varied, hundreds of thousands of varied divine and multicolored. And what it refers, we'll see when it starts in detail. And then he goes to the next verse that Krishna says, behold my wonderful form. So, oh best of Bharata, see here the different manifestations of Adityas, Vasus, Rudras, Ashwini Kumaras, and all the other demigods. Behold the many wonderful things which no one has ever seen or heard of before. Okay, it's very important this one, that even though Arjuna was a personal friend of Krishna, it is still not possible for him, you know, to see, you know, to know, not only to see, but to also know everything about Krishna, right? Arjuna was so close to Krishna. That doesn't mean he knew everything about Krishna. right? Now here it is stated that humans have neither heard, no one has either heard of these forms, or I've ever seen before, right? See, if we have not seen something before and suddenly something comes in front of us, how will we feel? Amazed, right? Imagine a person is blind since birth, right? And suddenly the person gets a vision. Here the person gets the eyesight. What will happen? He will take time to get acquainted and understand how everything is looking, right? It will take time to digest, right? So Krishna is already giving a kind of trailer that you will see everybody in me, even Adityas, Vasus. We learned last week, right, that Adityas were the son of Aditi, right? And there were 12 Adityas, and Krishna says that I am Vishnu in Adityas. He came in the form of Vamana, right? So I'm Vamana among Adityas, right? So he says, and among Rudras also he says, I'm Shiva, right? So we will see everybody in him. That's what he's saying. And he says, highlights that no one has ever seen or heard of this, right? So he's building that. And next, 7th verse, O Arjuna, whatever you wish to see, behold at once in this body of mine. Anything you wish to see. Yeah? This universal form can show you whatever you now desire to see and whatever you may want to see in future. Everything moving and non-moving is here completely in just one place. We say, right, one-stop shop. You just go there and you'll find everything. That's what Krishna is saying. Yeah, Krishna is going to give Arjuna the power to see anything what has happened in past, which is happening in present, and also what is going to happen in future. And all this is only because of Krishna's mercy, right? Only because of Krishna's mercy, Arjuna is able to see everything. Arjuna did not really ask Krishna specifically that he wants to see something in future, right? But Krishna is so merciful, he is sitting within Arjuna as a super soul, right? He knows that Arjuna may be curious to know what will be the outcome of this Mahabharata, right? He knows he may be curious to know about it. So he shows him, that he tells him that you will also be able to see the future without even Arjuna asking. And in further shlokas, we'll see, how Krishna says, how Arjuna sees on one end everybody in the war field going inside Krishna's mouth. And then Krishna says, just become my instrument. I have already set things up. You just become my instrument so that this, you can be part of it. You can serve. So, so yeah, that's what Krishna is giving him, the power, right? The mercy. Okay. And then the last shloka for today, divine vision. That's what I said. Krishna says then to Arjuna that, but to see all these, what he has mentioned, the trailer, you cannot see me with your present eyes. Therefore, I give you divine eyes, Divya Chakshu. And he says, behold my mystic opulence. Just be ready to digest it. Yeah. See, the universal form is not very, very important. Yeah, that will be clear in the next verse. Yet, because Arjuna wanted to see it, Lord gives him the particular vision required to see that universal form. Yeah, it's like Krishna is giving the highest, not highest, but at least higher level of access, to Arjuna, than what we could see with our normal eyes. Right? And then we conclude with the last slide from the purport. That devotees who are correctly situated in a transcendental relationship with Krishna are attracted by loving features, not by godless display of appearances. Yeah? The playmates of Krishna, the friends of Krishna, and the parents of Krishna never want Krishna to show his opulence. They are so immersed in pure love that they do not even know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God. In their loving exchange, they forget that Krishna is supreme. Right? So pure devotees, it's the love factor, right? What we learn. They don't want to see opulence of Krishna. Like gopis, they want to. When they couldn't. They could feel themselves related to the Vrindavan form of Krishna, not the Dwarka form also, because Dwarka form is opulent, right? So that's why that's the beauty of it, So see here in the sentence, it says that godless display of opulences. Godless means that devotees are actually not interested in seeing the greatness of Krishna, because they cannot feel that connection. They cannot reciprocate with that form, and they only want to see the Sham Sundar form of Krishna. That is where they can, the 200 form, that is where they can reciprocate. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that all these boys in this picture, you see so many gopas and everybody, right? All these boys who are playing with Krishna in Vrindavan are all highly pious souls. After many births, pious births, they are able to play with Krishna. Right? Such boys, they do not know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They take him just as their best friend, right? Therefore, Sukhdev Goswami, he says a verse in Bhagavatam that here is the Supreme Person who is considered as impersonal Brahman by great sages, Supreme Personality of Godhead by devotees, and a product of material nature by ordinary life. This is different thought processes, right? Now, these boys who have performed so many years, millions of years of pious activities, in their past lives, they get to have that personal, connect with Krishna, with the personality of God. So with that, we finish our session today. And